Hi, this is Paul with an update on the progress of OctaneRender for Nuke. I've got a scene with a Nuke 3D camera plugged into the OctaneRender node, going into a writer, and then there's a viewer on the left, a 2D viewer, and a 3D viewer on the right here, where the Nuke camera is. So having a look at the node, you'll see that we can now edit CUDA devices, so we can set the priority from high, medium, low on the various cards you might have in your system. This system's only got a very low-end card. We can load different OCX or Orbx files. You could load one per Nuke scene. We can reload the scene if need be. We can restart rendering. So when I click this button, the progress dialog comes up showing the estimated time to completion, how many samples have been rendered, and the pass that it's rendering at the moment. So you can see it's rendering the material ID pass at the moment. Those passes come from the render passes that are selected down here. So if we, for example, want wireframe, we click that, the render restarts, and you'll see wireframe will pop up during the render status at some point. Obviously, the more GPU power you have, the better from that point of view. As before, you can still view any of the selected passes. So at the moment, I have the position pass ticked, so you can select the position pass there, and do all the Nuke maths, etc. that you would do on that. I'll just turn those off. So the other new feature, or the biggest new feature, is the ability to actually edit the Octane scene. So we click this button here and we get a node graph from Octane Standalone. So for example, the flower petals here, we could change the power of the texture map, and you'll see that they went from pink to black. So you can add new, you can plug different nodes into different slots, you can change any of the values, etc., and that all works absolutely fantastically. And it all happens live on the viewport there. We'll change that back to 1, and you see that goes back. You can even change components of the render target. For example, I could change the AO max samples from 30 to 25, and when you go back into here, okay, but that's not working at the moment, but that will actually update to 25 there. At any point you can stop the render just by clicking that dialog box. So you know whenever that dialog box is there that the plugin is rendering. We can also take the assets, the geometry assets, out of that OCS with the import geometry, and that will load those assets into the Nuke 3D scene. And that's not for the purposes of rendering, but for the purposes of doing visualization. So that's pretty neat. That just sits off to the side here as a reference point. As before, when you change the timeline, it updates the frame number in the Alembic file of the container in that OCX file there, and recommences the rendering. Now with this particular scene, I've also got this camera here keyframed very slightly to go from left to right. So if we go to frame 1, you'll see the camera moves, and the camera and the flowers to the left. And then if we go to frame 30, you'll see the camera has moved to the left, and the flower is on the right. So you can move the camera in Nuke, and it transposes into the Octane scene to replace the camera coordinates in the Octane scene, which is really cool. We also have a bunch of camera settings here we can change. You can add camera motion blur, for example. when you add camera motion blur, the plugin will load the relevant frames. So you can see that's added some motion, too much motion blur. Make it 0.1. And when you render that out in Nuke, it will render that that motion blur as well. You also have a motion vector in the plugin too, so you can get a separate render pass with the XYZ motion vectors of each vertex in that pass. You can change some of the imager settings. We've just at the moment it's really only the hot pixel that you can change. The other imager settings are really superseded by Nuke itself. You can change the environment from daylight to IBL, and again you can animate any of these settings in Nuke, and they'll transpose through to the Orbx file. Just going back up here, if you have edited the scene, you can then save the Octane scene, and that will save the change that you create, the change that you made in this editor will save back to the scene that you've got here. You've also got the copy to Nuke camera that will copy the current Octane scene camera coordinates to the Nuke camera. So it's just a fast track way of getting the Nuke camera to match Octane. Now the final component to this is rendering out the animation in Nuke as opposed to Octane. So to do that, we click the plugin, we click the animation mode checkbox. Now once the animation mode checkbox is ticked, the plugin will block all Nuke access until each frame has completed rendering. So before you click that, obviously save the file, and we'll set max samples to something small like 50. So once you're in animation mode, I'll just stop that rendering. Once you're in animation mode, there, the status window says animation mode enabled. Do not edit the nodes. You can then go and render to the right node. So this now blocks Nuke. So we're rendering the animation. Nuke is blocked whilst each frame is animating. So you can see that we're on frame 2 now, and we're 20 samples out of 50. So it will render each Octane frame until the end of the max samples, and then once that's done, it will save, or Nuke will do its normal save, and then it progresses the timeline along. So that's a summary of where it's at. It's looking really good. It's very, very stable. So I hope everyone's excited, and hopefully it will be available soon. Thanks for listening.